The 2004 NFL Draft was set to be a turning point in league history, not because of the talent pool, but because of one clear statement. Eli Manning would not play for the San Diego Chargers. The projected number 1 pick had drawn his line in the sand. You heard it absolutely right. While other players were trying their best to secure a big contract with a team in the draft, there was one player outright refusing to sign a contract with the team. Something like this had never happened before in the entire history of the NFL. Despite coming from NFL royalty, the Manning family name, this wasn't about ego. It was about control. To understand why a Manning would dare challenge the NFL's established order, we need to rewind 2 decades. The story begins not with Eli, but with his father, Archie Manning, a quarterback whose brilliant career became a cautionary tale of talent wasted in the wrong organization. What's even more interesting is what happened after the draft, when Eli refused to play for the Chargers. Despite his refusal, why did the Chargers still select Eli? What benefit or loss did the Chargers get from this decision? How did Eli handle this situation? After taking such a bold step, did Eli's career grow successfully? Did he turn out to be the caliber of player everyone expected? You'll find answers to all these questions in this short document. Make sure to watch till the end. In 1971, Archie Manning joined the New Orleans Saints as the 2nd overall pick. Armed with a golden arm and quick feet, he seemed destined for greatness. But the Saints were a franchise in disarray. Over 11 grueling seasons, Archie found himself running for his life behind a porous offensive line, throwing to subpar receivers, and adapting to an endless carousel of coaches. Despite his exceptional skills, he never had a winning season. The contrast couldn't have been starker when Eli's older brother, Peyton Manning, entered the NFL in 1998. The Indianapolis Colts, who selected him 1st overall, did everything right. They built a fortress-like offensive line, surrounded him with talented receivers, and maintained coaching stability. By 2004, Peyton revolutionized the quarterback position, breaking records and turning the Colts into Super Bowl contenders. Growing up in this football dynasty, young Eli absorbed these lessons through osmosis. At family dinners, football wasn't just discussed, it was dissected. While other kids learned basic formations, Eli understood offensive schemes, defensive coverages, and most importantly, the delicate ecosystem needed for a quarterback to succeed. At Ole Miss, Eli carved his own path away from his brother's shadow at Tennessee. He didn't just play football, he studied it. By his senior year, he'd amassed over 10,000 passing yards and 81 touchdowns. NFL scouts raved about his pocket presence, his ability to read defenses, and his uncanny composure under pressure. Like his father and brother before him, Eli was destined to be a first-round pick. But the Manning family had learned something crucial over their decades in football. Talent alone doesn't guarantee success. The organization matters, the system matters, the commitment to winning matters. So, when the 2004 draft approached, the San Diego Chargers held the 1st pick, and alarm bells were ringing in the Manning household. The Chargers' recent history was beginning to look eerily familiar to Archie. A revolving door of coaches, questionable management decisions, and a talented roster seemingly destined for underachievement. The question wasn't whether Eli had the talent to succeed in the NFL. The question was, would the Chargers let him? The San Diego Chargers of 2004 were a case study of how not to run an NFL franchise. Their recent history cast a long shadow, particularly the cautionary tale of Ryan Leaf. In 1998, faced with choosing between Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, they watched Indianapolis select Manning, then happily drafted Leaf with the 2nd pick. What followed was one of the most spectacular failures in NFL history. Leaf's career imploded in a cloud of poor performance, worse behavior, and shattered expectation. In 3 disastrous seasons, he threw twice as many interceptions as touchdowns, confronted journalists, and alienated teammates. The Chargers had bet their future on the wrong quarterback, and they were still paying the price. But the problems ran deeper than one failed draft pick. The team had churned through 3 head coaches in 4 years, each bringing their own system, their own playbook, and their own way of developing quarterbacks. For a young quarterback trying to learn the NFL game, this kind of instability was poison. The offensive line was a particular concern. In the previous season, their quarterbacks had been sacked 37 times. The running game was inconsistent, and the receiving core was underwhelming. The team hadn't posted a winning season since 1995, and attendance was dropping at Qualcomm Stadium. Behind the scenes, the situation was even more troubling. General Manager A.J. Smith had earned the nickname the Lord of No Rings for his stubborn negotiating style and difficult relationships with players. The team's training facilities lagged behind league standards, and there were whispers about the ownership's commitment to spending what it took to build a winner. The Manning family's research painted a clear picture. Through their NFL connections, they learned about delayed payments to staff, outdated equipment, and a culture that seemed more focused on saving money than winning games. It was as if the Chargers were running a masterclass in how to stifle a young quarterback's development. As one former Chargers coach put it, speaking on condition of anonymity, they weren't just losing games, they were losing their way. For the Mannings, the parallels to Archie's time with the Saints were impossible to ignore. Same script, different city. A talented quarterback would be asked to be a savior without being given the tools to succeed. But unlike Archie in 1971, Eli had something his father never had: leverage. And in the quiet offices of agent Tom Condon, a plan was taking shape that would shock the NFL and change the draft forever. The question wasn't whether to avoid the Chargers anymore, the question was how. The plan to challenge the NFL draft system began months before draft day. Tom Condon, Manning's agent, initiated quiet conversations with several teams, but one emerged as the clear frontrunner: the New York Giants. The Giants represented everything the Chargers weren't: a stable franchise with a rich history, a proven coach, Tom Coughlin, who had a track record of developing young quarterbacks, a strong offensive line. Most importantly, they had the 4th overall pick, close enough to make a trade realistic. The Manning camp's strategy was carefully orchestrated. First came the private warnings to the Chargers through back channels. When those were ignored, Archie Manning went public with a calculated statement: Eli will not play for the Chargers. The announcement sent shockwaves through the NFL. The Chargers general manager, A.J. Smith, responded with defiance. He would draft Manning anyway, believing he could force the young quarterback to change his mind. It was a high-stakes game of chicken, with neither side willing to blink. Behind the scenes, Giants GM Ernie Accorsi worked methodically. He had coveted Manning since watching him play at Ole Miss, seeing shades of Johnny Unitas in his game, but he had to play it cool. If the Chargers sensed his desperation, the price would skyrocket. The weeks before the draft became a chess match. The Mannings couldn't publicly name the Giants as their preferred destination. That would violate NFL rules. The Giants couldn't openly negotiate with Manning while he was still technically eligible for the draft. The Chargers couldn't admit they were considering trading the pick without losing leverage. The night before the draft, Condon made one last call to the Chargers. The message was clear: Eli would sit out the entire season if drafted by San Diego. The response was equally clear: we'll take our chances. As the sun rose over Madison Square Garden on draft day, the stage was set for a confrontation that would test the very foundations of the NFL draft system. In his hotel room, Eli Manning knotted his tie and prepared to face whatever came next. No one knew exactly how it would play out, but everyone knew one thing: this draft day would be unlike any other. The NFL would witness a power play that would reshape the relationship between teams and players forever. The tension in Madison Square Garden peaked as Commissioner Tagliabue announced the Chargers' selection of Eli Manning. Walking to the stage, Manning forced a smile and held up the Chargers jersey, creating one of the most awkward photo ops in draft history. In the background, phones were ringing frantically. The Giants had just selected Philip Rivers with the 4th pick, setting up the possibility of a trade. Tom Condon worked on the phones from a private suite while Ernie Accorsi negotiated with the Chargers front office. The stakes were enormous. The Chargers knew they couldn't afford another quarterback disaster after the Ryan Leaf debacle. The Giants realized this might be their only chance to land a franchise quarterback. The negotiations were intense, with both sides pushing for every advantage. Time was critical. Draft day trades become exponentially more complicated with each passing minute. Other teams were watching, ready to jump in if the Giants-Chargers deal fell apart. The pressure mounted as the draft continued, pick after pick. After an hour of intense negotiations, the deal was struck. The Giants would send Philip Rivers their 3rd-round pick in 2004 and their 1st and 5th-round picks in 2005 to San Diego in exchange for Manning. When Tagliabue announced the trade, the Garden erupted. Manning quickly exchanged his Chargers cap for a Giants one, this time with a genuine smile. The New York media swarmed, eager to get the first quotes from their new quarterback. "I'm a New York Giant," Manning declared, "and I couldn't be happier." In San Diego, A.J. Smith put his own spin on the outcome. "We got the quarterback we wanted all along," he insisted, holding up Rivers' jersey, plus additional picks to build around him. But as the dust settled, both sides knew this was more than just a trade. The Manning family had successfully challenged the NFL draft system, proving that top prospects could influence their destiny. They'd done it without burning bridges, maintaining professionalism throughout. For Eli, the hard part was just the beginning. He wasn't just going to New York, he was going there as the quarterback who forced his way to the Big Apple. Every throw, every game would be scrutinized. The price had been high, both in draft picks and expectations. Now came the biggest question of all. Could Manning prove that this unprecedented draft day gamble was worth it? Manning's early years in New York tested the Giants' faith. His rookie season ended with a 1-6 record as a starter, prompting questions about whether the draft day gamble had been worth it. Meanwhile, Philip Rivers sat behind Drew Brees in San Diego for 2 years before taking over as starter. The turning point came in 2007. Manning led the Giants to an improbable playoff run, culminating in Super Bowl 42 against the undefeated New England Patriots. Down 14-10 with 2:39 remaining, Manning orchestrated a game-winning drive highlighted by the famous helmet catch to David Tyree. His touchdown pass to Plaxico Burress sealed a 17-14 victory and earned him Super Bowl MVP honors. 4 years later, Manning replicated this success. He led the Giants to another Super Bowl victory over the Patriots in 2012, again earning MVP honors. These championships validated his draft day decision and secured his place in NFL history. In San Diego, Rivers developed into one of the league's most consistent quarterbacks. He led the Chargers to 6 playoff appearances and broke numerous franchise records. Yet the team never reached a Super Bowl, plagued by the same organizational issues that had concerned the Manning family years earlier. The 2004 draft changed how players approached their NFL futures. Several top prospects since then have exercised more control over their destinations. Teams began paying closer attention to whether players truly wanted to join their organizations, leading to more pre-draft communication with prospects and their representative. The trade's impact extended beyond the players involved. The Chargers used their additional draft picks to build a competitive team, while the Giants' investment in Manning brought them 2 championships. Yet the contrast in organizational success proved the Manning family's initial instincts correct. The right environment matters as much as individual talent. Manning retired in 2020 after 16 seasons, all with the Giants. His career numbers tell only part of the story. 57,023 passing yards, 366 touchdowns, and those 2 Super Bowl victories. More significantly, he proved that a player could challenge the draft system and succeed. Rivers retired in 2021 after one final season with the Colts, ending a career that included 8 Pro Bowl selections and over 63,000 passing yards. Despite never winning a championship, he established himself as one of the era's most prolific quarterbacks. The legacy of the 2004 draft extends beyond statistics. It marked a shift in player empowerment, showing that top prospects could influence their destinies while maintaining professionalism. Manning's success in New York justified his family's careful evaluation of team cultures and organizational stability. Today, when draft prospects assess their potential NFL homes, they follow a blueprint the Manning family created, evaluating organizational stability, coaching consistency, and commitment to winning. The 2004 draft didn't just reshape 2 franchises, it changed how players and teams approach the most important day in football. Some stories in football end with a touchdown, others end with a championship. But Eli Manning's story ended by changing the game itself. His draft day stand showed that sometimes the biggest victories happen before you even step on the field. Like and subscribe to catch more untold stories from NFL history and let us know in the comments. Would you have made the same choice as Eli Manning?